Hello, and thank you for listening to the Testing the Spirits podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the Christian CCM music festival known as Soulfest. They're coming to town, and I wanted to discuss it. If you missed the live stream from yesterday, don't worry, we're going to go over some of the same content here. But basically, this is a 3-day event, and they're holding Catholic Mass. This is supposed to be an evangelical event, or at least that's the way it was originally founded, to be an evangelical event. But yeah, they're holding Catholic Mass, and it is certainly an ecumenical event, if not interfaith. And on the website, I just wanted to read something. The founders were a guy named Dan Russell, and him and his group launched Soulfest in 1998 at Loon Mountain Resort in New Hampshire. I was actually there the second year. I was there on vacation, attended totally by accident, but more on that in a moment. And yes, this is an event that started as an evangelical event, but today you go on their website, there's no cross. There's hardly any, if any at all, but hardly any talk about Jesus, no clear presentation of the gospel. But according to the website, the current people that are running this event, Frank Tate, any relation to Michael Tate, we're not sure, and Bev Abanzio, it says about these two people leading Soulfest that they are passionate believers in the power of music. And I don't doubt that. Music is very powerful. Music has a way of, instead of thinking with your mind, now you're thinking with your heart and your emotions, your feelings. So last year's event, we covered this last year. I think there were 2 podcasts that I did last year. We talked about how Soulfest was sponsored by the Diocese of Springfield, so the Roman Catholic Archdiocese, and they had a rosary tent, Catholic Mass, the whole deal. And the Catholic Mass is when they re-sacrifice Jesus on a Roman altar, and they say it's an efficacious sacrifice. And that's why they claim to literally be drinking the blood of Jesus and literally eating his flesh, because the priest has the power to pull Jesus down from heaven to lay him once again. Christ submits to the Roman priest as he's laid once again on a Roman altar to be sacrificed again and again until the end of the world. Well, that's Catholic doctrine, and obviously, as a pastor, I'm a little concerned if this is being thought of as an evangelical event, and people are going, and there's a rosary tent or Catholic Mass is being held. As a pastor, I have a duty based on 1 John 4:1. We all have a duty to test the spirits, but as a pastor, Titus 1 verse 9 says it's my job, the elder's job, to refute those who contradict. So obviously there are some problems with Soulfest. Like I said, this caught my attention last year when their headline act was Lecrae, a guy who openly admits to going through Christian deconstruction. And I just want to read some of the events that are happening this year at Soulfest. So they have at 4:30 the quiet place, where people are encouraged to listen to the still small voice. Now, Elijah heard the still small voice of God, and it was actually the Lord speaking to him audibly. He heard it. Today, the still small voice is just kind of your feelings and the thoughts in your head. That is not the voice of God, okay? The thoughts in your mind, the voice in your head is not the voice of God, okay? That's your conscience. Hopefully, we're informed by Scripture, but this is obviously a charismatic practice. At 8:40, the pro-LGBT band Switchfoot will be playing, and there's a lot of artists, Lecrae and others who support, openly affirm sin, and that's a problem. At 9 a.m., both days, or all 3 days, certainly at least 2 days, Catholic Mass is being held. And then at 7:50 p.m., on, I believe, Friday night, Matt Maher will be holding a candlelight service. Now, Matt Maher is a devout Roman Catholic. So if a Catholic is leading a worship service, then that, at the very least, is an interfaith, or at the very least, an ecumenical, if not interfaith service with Roman Catholics. But this is the type of thing that's happening at Soulfest. And I've tried to warn people about this, about the coming one world government, which thankfully more and more people are open to that there is an emerging one world government. But the book of Revelation, chapter 13, tells us that the whole world during the tribulation will be controlled by the beast and the false prophet. So the beast is, we refer to him usually as the Antichrist. There is a coming one world government and a one world religion. And people have wondered, how are all of the religions of the world going to be united? How does that even work? Well, it's being driven by music. See, the Roman Catholic Church, the Pope, they are working overtime to bring all religions together under their umbrella. And they're already successful with the Charismatics and certain Protestant groups and Eastern Orthodox, and they're coming together talking about unity with Rome, or at least they're open to fellowship with Rome. And through music, this is helping to bring it about, because music, when you hear these repetitive 7-11 choruses, 7 words repeated 11 times, it almost puts people in like a hypnotic state. They're very open to suggestions. So when you listen to this music, you're no longer thinking with your mind. You're no longer testing the spirits, if people ever did that to begin with. But now you're thinking with your emotions. So when they call for unity and they got the Catholics up there, and that can lead a young person who is, let's say it's some young teenager who's evangelical, they see that their church is supporting Soulfest and they go to this event. I'm not condemning anyone who goes to this event. I'm not condemning anyone who has gone or is going. I'm just giving you the warnings. I'm giving you the information, because this is dangerous. A young evangelical goes, hey, everyone he knows, she knows is supporting it. And then they go and they see a Catholic Mass, rosary tent, interfaith worship with Catholics or whatever, and they are sent the message. This is the clear message that's being sent, that this is all, fine, or at least it's no big deal. So this is the problem. And again, Titus 1 verse 9, this is the pastor's job to refute those who contradict. And clearly the Pope and the Catholic Church contradict sound doctrine. So I know some people who attend these events, and I actually attended one of these events by accident in New Hampshire at Loon Mountain Resort. My family was on vacation, and we just so happened to be there for the second Soulfest. And again, if you watch the live stream, I'm sorry that some of this is repetitive, but I went there, and there was a guy, I just remember this guy. He was clearly intoxicated, and he was saying how, my God doesn't mind if I bring a 12-pack to Bible study. My God is bigger than all of that. Now, I wasn't walking with the Lord at age 20, okay? I think I was around 20, but I knew that was wrong. I knew that's off. My God doesn't mind if I bring a 12-pack. And there were other kids, these punk bands, hard rock band, heavy metal bands, with green hair and mohawks, but it was Christian, and this just didn't compute for me. Again, I wasn't walking with the Lord, but I knew enough growing up in church that this doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem Christian. And then the headline act back then, they had DC Talk, Newsboys. Of course, DC Talk, Michael Tate from DC Talk and Newsboys has now come out that he's homosexual, accused of SA. POD was a headline act. Jars of Clay have come out as pro-LGB. Switchfoot is playing this year. They're pro-LGB. Lecrae last year went through deconstruction. I saw POD. I mean, that was like thrash. That was the heaviest music, the loudest concert I had ever heard. And I kind of watched from a distance. And then I saw them on MTV Cribs like a few months later or next year. And the guy from POD, this Christian band, was showing off his refrigerator that was literally packed to the brim with like 400 cans of like Natty Ice, this cheap light beer. So even as a younger person, not walking with the Lord, I'm like, how is any of this Christian? But people say, well, that you're just picking out the worst examples. Yeah, but at some point, with them having Switchfoot and Lecrae, after they went through deconstruction or came out, it's not like these people don't know. But again, I look at their website, no cross, hardly any, if any at all, talk about Jesus. No clear representation of the gospel. And I think part of it is people want to go to an event that's family friendly. You know, they listen to CCM because the CCM music, okay, people are not like AC/DC or Ozzy Osbourne, like worshiping the devil. They're not singing about drunkenness and fornication and dropping F-bombs. And this is a concert where people presumably are not going to be dropping 4-letter words. So it's a family-friendly event. There's not going to be nudity or violence like you see from Hollywood. So it seems like good, clean fun. And I understand people's desire. And listen, if you like one of these artists and you go and that's between you and God, but I just want to give you the information that the CCM world, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. So there is a danger here, and obviously the message that's being sent is that Roman Catholicism, their gospel is efficacious for salvation, which that's just like throwing the Protestant Reformation in the garbage, pretending it never happened. So Rome teaches a works-based salvation by having a Catholic service or having Matt Maher lead evangelicals, and this is all highly problematic to say the least. So, what's my main takeaway? Basically, just be careful. Be careful, because this CCM music, we've talked about the scandals. This is not an anomaly. This is pretty much standard. You know, these people, most of them, I'm not saying there's not an exception or two, but the lifestyle that DC Talk, newsboys, you know, Kevin Max, Michael Tate. I mean, you got atheism, agnosticism, or homosexuality, and SA, and just one band after another. Seems like there's a new band going apostate every month, if not every week. And the danger, because music is powerful. It's used for the glory of God, but Satan uses music as well. So the big danger is people, their heart gets attached to the music. And not just to the music, but to the musician. So when your heart gets attached to the music, then you can easily be led astray when these musicians come out as, you know, pro-LGBT or whatever. So when you love somebody and now you're following them, and oh man, Switchfoot, I just love Switchfoot. They're just so spiritual. Their music is so amazing. I love them. And then they get up and they tell you something that's unbiblical. Well, you're listening to this repetitive praise music. Your mind has been, you know, turned off, and now you're open to what they're saying. And these people are preaching in between songs. Their music and what they say should be held to the same standard as a pastor. So this is what happens if somebody teaches the wrong thing. I mean, maybe someone will object, but if they sing the wrong thing, or if they say something, you know, off the cuff in between songs, well, let's let that slide. So there is a big danger. Your heart gets attached to the music. I'll just share this story one more time. When I was searching for my favorite hymn years ago online, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, and I found the Mormon Tabernacle Choir singing it. And I was listening, and they did an amazing job. They can sing very well. And in the middle of listening to that song, the thought came into my mind, how can these people not be Christian? They're singing, it's glorifying to God. And I know better than that. And I know, and I knew better than that. And I thought, well, I realized the danger of music, but I realized the power of it. And, you know, I tend to think I'm a little more discerning than the average person. So I recognized that and immediately corrected myself, shut it off. Okay. And I'm going to tell other people so they don't fall for this. But obviously a lot of people do fall for this. So if you're a mature believer and you choose to go to Soulfest, I mean, that's your choice. Obviously, God has given us a free... I'm not going to say it's a sin to go. I don't think any churches are, you know, disciplining people for going to Soulfest. But, you know, at what point do you cross a line? Like, what if the Mormons were there holding a joint service? I mean, I just want people to consider this. Where would you cross the line? The Catholics are there. Okay, there's Catholic worship, there's Mass, and you're okay with going. All right, what if the Mormons were there? Would you go then? What if the Jehovah's Witnesses were hosting worship and there was a Jehovah's Witness on stage leading worship, would you go to that? I just want people to figure this out in their mind, each person for themselves. I mean, obviously, that there should be a line that you don't cross, but figure it out. And some people, here's my fear, some people, there is no line. They could be Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, Muslim. Rick Warren got into the Chrislam thing for a while. The Pope is doing joint events, worship events, prayer events with Buddhists. And once you go down this ecumenical interfaith road, at some point there is no line, and you're falling for the agenda of the one world religion of the end times. And that's what I want to caution people against. So that's my spiel about Soulfest coming up here in Greenfield, Massachusetts. I'm recording this podcast on Tuesday. I'm going to release it Wednesday morning. So the next day, Thursday, I believe is the first day of Soulfest. Just be careful and please test the spirits. 1 John 4, verse 1, test the spirits whether or not they're of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. Thanks for listening, and until next time, may the Lord be with you, and have a great day.